Okay, today we're going to talk about ratios and proportions. Anybody know what a ratio is? What's a ratio? Anybody know? Okay, what does that mean? A ratio is a comparison of two or more numbers. That's correct. Comparison of two or more numbers, it can be written three different ways. So here's an example of what we mean by that. The ratio of 9 cents to 13 cents can be written in fractional form, 9/13. Colon form. Now remember, the colon form is also the standard form. That's 9:13. Or we can use the word form of 2. 9/2/13. Or you can write it in words. 9/2/13. Okay? Three different forms that we can write a ratio in. You should always simplify your ratios. We would not say, oh, that's the ratio of 15 to 40. 15 to 40 can be simplified. What can I reduce 15 and 40 by? By 5. And if I reduce it by 5, what is my true ratio here? No, 3 to what? 3 to 8. Come on, divide correctly now. 3 to 8. So 3 to 8 is my ratio. Now, if I had the ratio of 28 to 7, how could I simplify that ratio? By what? By 7. And if I divide by 7, what's my ratio? 4 to 1. Now, 4 to 1 is the actual ratio. If I just put the number 4, that is not a comparison. You cannot say that the ratio is 4. You have to say the ratio is 4 to 1. You have to have something to compare. A ratio should never be made into a whole number or a mixed number. You have to have two numbers to compare. So if you have 20 to 1, you need to say 20 over 1, 20:1, or 20 to 1. Do not do 20. A ratio is not a whole number. You have to have a comparison. If I had the ratio 33 to 6, I need to simplify it. If I simplified by 3, I would get 11 to 2. Not 5.5. So never, ever, ever use a whole number or a mixed number with a ratio. A ratio has to have a comparison by definition, okay? Any questions about that? Nope? Everybody got it? Okay. Now, this is what the morning class had quite a bit of trouble with. A ratio must be written based on how the question orders it. So here's an example. And the first test that you guys have today has quite a few word problems. So you need to make sure you understand how to do these. Your school's basketball team lost 3 games and won 7 games. The question is, what is the ratio of wins to losses? Now, because you're comparing the wins to the losses, you need to write the wins first in your ratio. So focus on the question so you know how to write your ratio. So the games that they won was 7. And the games that they lost was 3. So your ratio will be 7-3. Read your question carefully. And that's why a lot of people got 50s and stuff on their test today, because they weren't reading the question. Oh yeah, and you don't want 50. I want 80, remember. 80 or higher. Okay? Thank you. Now, a ratio with decimals are easy to compute. Now, I want to show you a quick little shortcut to deal with decimals, okay? Because sometimes you just don't have time to actually divide, do whatever. But you could. A pear costs $1.15 a pound and apples cost 95 cents a pound. What is the ratio of the cost of apples to the cost of pears? We need the ratio of the cost of apples to the cost of pears. Since there are 2 decimals in each price, we can simply move our decimals to the right in each number and then reduce by 5. So I showed you this shortcut.
So basically just remove the decimal.
Just move it over. 1, 2. We were doing a bunch of moving yesterday, weren't we? So 1, 2, 1, 2. However many moves you make on top, you make the same number of moves on the bottom until you get whole numbers. And then I get 95 over 115. Then I'm going to divide it by 5. If I divide by 5, my ratio is 19-23.
So
Just get rid of them.
Are we dividing by 5?
What happened to you? Wow. Can you see out of that eye? Did you put a stake or something on it?
Yeah, I
It just doesn't. Oh my gosh.
headgear doesn't protect like against like when you're in the clinch.
Were you playing soccer or baseball? You're what? Oh, martial arts? Well, you have no protection, really, do you?
Oh, you have a headgear, just an elbow.
Well, boy, he got you good. Oh, no. Okay.
That is more of
You poor thing. You know, but you know what? It gives you some character.
So then we're dividing by 5 just because in this instance.
Because you have to simplify. That's why. Yeah. Yeah, you have to simplify it. Yeah. And it's much easier to see what you have to simplify once you get rid of all those
So now,
decimals.
when we're talking about like decimals or in this instance money, we just move it over
Till it's a whole number.
So basically we just take the decimals out.
Right. But sometimes, let's say, Alex, at the top you might have 1 decimal, and on the bottom you have 3. That means you need to move 3 decimal places on top and 3 decimal places on the bottom to clear all the decimals out. Okay, sometimes it's not even like it is in this example. Okay?
So essentially just remove so that you just have a whole number.
Yeah, but you might end up like, let's say the first one was a whole number 5, but then you had 1.5 on the bottom. So you just move it to 50 on top and 15 on the bottom. So you have to include the 0. Yeah, that's why I'm saying whatever moves you do on the bottom, you do on the top. Okay, so because you might have to add a 0, right? Okay? Now, this is another thing that people did not understand this morning. When you have a ratio that's in the same category of measure, you need to... Who's singing? Oh, okay. You have to simplify your answer, and I suggest you simplify everything to the smallest units. So let me give you an example here. What is the simplified ratio for a 1 3/4 pints to 14 cups? Now listen, pints and cups are both in the same category of measure. They are liquid capacity measures. Yesterday when we were doing the metric system, we were calling these liters. But in everyday life, or in American household life, we have, for this type of measure, we have teaspoons, tablespoons, pints, quarts, gallons, cups, glasses, okay? 8 fluid ounces. You need to know that all of those are in the same category of measure. They're all capacity liquid volume. If I talk about measurements for length, the same category of measure will be miles. yards, feet, inches, acres. Those are all in the same category of measure. So if you find that you have a ratio that's in the same category of measure, you should simplify the one that's the biggest and make it in terms of the other smaller one, and then actually reduce them down if you can. So in my problem, I've got pints and cups. So how many cups are in a pint? Not 4, 2. Yeah, there's 2. So there's 2 cups in a pint. So I need to take the 1 3/4 pints and convert them to cups so that I have cups and cups that I'm going to be converting and comparing. Because it doesn't make sense to do pints and cups. They're both the same kind of liquid type of measure, and you just need to take the larger size item and make it the smaller size item, okay? So if I took 1 3/4 and multiplied it by 2 so I could figure out how many cups there would be, so I took the improper fraction of 1 3/4 is 4 times 1 is 4 plus 3 is 7/4. Then I multiplied it by 2, which is the same as 2/1. So when I took 7/4 and times it by 2/1, I got 7/2 when I used cancellation. Now I have 7/2 cups divided by 14 cups. So my ratios have the same unit now. Now I'm going to do keep, switch, and flip because I'm dividing fractions right here. I've got 2 fractions that I'm dividing. And when I do keep, switch, and flip, I get the ratio of 1 to 4. If you do not convert this, you will not get the correct ratio. You must do some work if you're talking about the same category of measure. So let me give you guys another example. Let's say that I have 9 dimes to 4 nickels. Okay? I asked you for the ratio of dimes to nickels. Are dimes and nickels in the same category of measure? Who said no? Aren't they both money? They're in the same type of measurement. So you guys need to be able to identify that. All right? Now, a dime also consists of how many nickels? How many nickels make the same as a dime? How many nickels will be the same value as a dime? 2 nickels are a dime. Okay, so we're going to times this by 2. We get 18 nickels to 4 nickels. Now, this is my ratio, 18 to 4, because I've converted the larger unit to the smaller unit. Now, can I reduce that? What can I reduce by? 2. And what's my actual ratio? And I'm going to write it in standard form, 9 to 2. You cannot say 9 to 4. That is not correct. It's 9 to 2. Okay? This is what I'm talking about. Same thing with time. If I gave you 2 hours to 20 minutes and I wanted a ratio, you need to change the hours to minutes and then simplify your ratio. So if they're in the same category of measure, you have to do a little work, okay? Huh? You should always try to reduce your ratios if you can, okay? You just can't make a ratio a mixed number or a whole number, but they can be improper, but simplified, like this one, 9 over 2, 9 to 2, that's improper, okay? All right, rates. Rates are special. Actually, you guys see rates all the time. You probably see rates more than you see ratios. Now look, a rate is a ratio. It's the same as a ratio. However, you have two different types of units. So as long as you have two different types of units, you can use the ratios, which are called rates, because they're different. You can still use your theory for ratios with rates. You need to simplify your rates. Now, just like with ratios, rates can be written in standard form. I gave you an example here of $4 to 1 calculator. I can write that rate as $4 colon 1 calculator. I can write it in fractional form of $4 to a calculator. I can write it in a form with the word to by putting $4 to a calculator. But look at this form right here. When I have a rate, I can change the rates to a per unit rate. Now, let me give you something that we use all the time that's a rate that we use per unit. Miles per hour. Miles deal with length. Hours deal with time. That is a rate ratio. That's a type of rate ratio. Okay? Can you guys give me some other ones we do where the rates are where it's different units besides miles per hour? Give me some other rates that we use every day. Rates that we use every day. Yeah, money per gallon. That's a one we do all the time, right? When we're driving or we go get gas. Okay? Can you think of any others? $1 a pound. Yes, that's money per pound. Yeah. Miles per gallon. I didn't do miles per gallon. I did miles per hour. But yeah. So you guys kind of get the idea. It's two different units. We use these rates all the time. But a rate is nothing but a ratio. So I want you guys to see that. You use them all the time. They're just ratios. They just have different units. Now, here is a rate that also needs to be simplified. When you have a rate, you still should simplify it. What can I simplify 34 degrees and 2 readings by? By 2. And that would give me what? 17 to 1. 17 degrees to 1 reading. So if you have a rate, you need to simplify it just like you would a ratio, because a rate is a ratio. It just has different units of measure. Okay, and then here's one with money. And notice, I didn't write this as a fraction, but the per means the fraction there. Now, some math teachers will make you write it in a ratio form, either with a colon, a fraction, or the word to. But I know in everyday life, we don't write rates like that all the time. We will use the word per to mean a rate. So in my class, I will allow you to write it with the form per if you're talking about a rate. Okay? Just like this one. We can reduce this by 4. And here we're going to get money. But the money is less than $1. It's 30 cents per pen. So lots of times when we do money or unit rates, we write it this way: the money per the item. And since we do that in application, for me in my class, it's okay for you to write your rates that way, unless I specifically tell you to write it as a fraction or to write it in standard form, okay? So if you're dealing with a rate and you want to write it as 30 cents per pen, that's okay with me. Just follow the directions on whatever the exercise says, okay? So rates are ratios with different units of measure. And in this class, you can write them 4 different ways instead of just 3. You can write them in fractional form. You can write them with a colon. You can write them with a to, or you can write them with per. Okay? Now, remember, in a ratio, if the numerator and denominator are in different measures, the ratio is going to be called the rate. Write your rates in the order stated by the question, just like you would your ratios. Your rates are ratios, okay? Now, sometimes you might see the terms unit rate. When they say unit rate, they want you to give them the amount per one item. So, questions that say 60 miles per 1 hour or per hour is a unit rate because you're doing it based on one. So let's have you guys do this example with the rate and the per unit. You can travel 1,200 miles on 60 gallons of gas. What is your fuel efficiency in miles per gallon? Tell me what the miles per gallon would be. How much did you say? So you would write your rate with the 1,200 over 60. Then you would divide by 60 to get 20 per 1 gallon. So you can rewrite your rate as, you can say 20 per 1 gallon just like this fraction if you want. Or you could write 20 miles per gallon or 20 mpg, which is the abbreviation for miles per gallon. So there's a couple of choices you have when you're dealing with rates of how you want to write it. The question didn't say I had to write it a particular way, so I have a lot of different choices I can write it. But remember to do your rates in the order that the question gives it, just like you would do it for a ratio, because a rate is a ratio, it just has different units. No, if we did 60 into 1,200, we'd get 20. Now, sometimes, you guys, when you're doing these word problems, it's not always real easy to figure out how to simplify or how to solve it. So, besides division, I want to give you another method you could use for your rates. We know that a per unit rate means per 1 unit. So we could use what's called the three-step method to set up our rates and solve for their unit rate. Especially when fractions are involved or decimals are involved, sometimes you need to have another method to figure out the rate. Now, I want everybody to say these steps with me. Set it up. Cross multiply. Divide. Let's do it again. Set it up. Cross multiply. Divide. Three-step method, okay? Shh. Now, we're going to use the three-step method to solve this problem, okay? If the temperature change was 1 degree in 1.5 hours, what is the temperature change in 1 hour? Now, I'm using this because to think it out, and you having that set it up, cross, multiply, divide, will help you figure this out. Especially with the fraction in there. It just freaks students out sometimes. So what are the 2 units of measure that are in this rate? What are the 2 different units? Look at the question. Degree and hours. So we know that 1 degree is compared to 1.5 hours. What other thing did they give you in this problem to help you solve? What is it question 1? What is the temperature change in 1 hour? The 1 hour needs to be right across on the same row as hours that you were given. You have to put the same unit on the same row when you're setting it up. Same unit, same row, okay? I'm setting these equivalent to one another because my answer needs to be equivalent. So, the first thing you do is you be a detective when you're reading these word problems and hunt for the given ratio. The given ratio is 1 degree in 1.5 hours. Write the given ratio first. Let's write given here. Then look for the other number. In this case, they told you that it's 1 hour. But let me tell you, sometimes you might read the problem and it doesn't have a number there. It might say, instead of 1 hour, it might say an hour, to the hour, per hour, each hour. Okay? If you're missing that third number is usually 1 because they want the unit rates. But they use different words for it. They might not use unit. They might use a, the, per, each. Okay? So those words mean 1. Okay? And I want you guys to know that. That's what's missing. So after you find the given and you write that ratio, then you write the other number down and put it in the right row based on its unit. And we used 1 hour here. Now I want you guys to look crossways. Where do I have 2 real numbers crossways? 1 and what? 1 and 1. Here I don't have 2 numbers crossways, but here I do. When you do step 2, that's what you multiply. The 2 real numbers you have crossways. So what's 1 times 1? Okay? So 1 times 1 is 1. And then that was my cross multiply. So I've set it up. I've cross multiplied and gotten 1. Then what am I supposed to do in step 3? Divide by what? I'm dividing by 1/2. You divide whatever you got in step 2 by the number that's left over. Oh yeah. 1.5 is the same as 3/2. Then I keep switch and flip and I get 2/3. So I have a change of 2/3 per hour. You cannot forget how to multiply and divide fractions. You cannot forget how to multiply and divide decimals. You cannot forget how to multiply and divide whole numbers because they're going to come up when you do your ratio and proportions. Are there any questions about this 3-step process? Set it up. Look for the given ratio. Look for the missing number. Cross multiply. Divide. Any questions?
No.
Yes, Dwayne. No, not unless it's asked for it specifically, no. Solving it and making it a fraction is just as fine. Because a decimal and a fraction are the same thing. They're just different formats. So, yeah, you can leave it as a fraction. Any other questions? Okay, was everybody able to get that down? Okay, let's go to the next thing. Now, sometimes with rates, it's just a money thing. And when we have to just do money and we ask for the best buy, it's just a simple division. Take your rate and do the division, and then you can compare them. This is something we do as adults all the time. What do I mean by the best buy? What does that mean? The one that you do what? The one that costs the least amount of money? When you're getting more for your money, okay. Okay, so in this case, which one's a good deal? I have 3 blanket throws for $25.99, or I have 2 blanket throws for $16.50. So you guys are telling me it's going to be the $16.50 just because it's cheaper? Okay, so how are you going to tell me which one's the best buy? You have to divide. So if I divide the first one, the unit price per unit is going to be $8.66 for each blanket. Then I need to compare that unit price to 2 into $16.50, which is $8.25 per blanket. So which is the best buy? The 2 for 16. And the 2 for 16 are the best buy because the unit price is the cheapest. Or the unit price is less money for Dwayne, okay? Now look, I have had students that like to have nice, expensive things. Okay, I don't even know why they're my students because they really already got money, okay? And we would always have trouble with problems like this because I remember one of my students, she's from Russia, and she goes, the best buy is, her idea of the best buy is not the cheapest, which is an American way of thinking of things. Her best buy is the better quality, okay? So if she was buying a Guess purse compared to a Dooney and Burke purse, well, of course, she's going for the Dooney and Burke, or she's going to go for Coach or for Michael Kors because she knows that they're better quality because it's probably real leather. But that is not the case when we're talking about best buy. In basic American cultural uses of best buy, we mean the cheapest per unit. Okay, so let's all get that straight because I know y'all probably got some quality things going on too. All right? So you want to pick the one that's the cheapest per unit when I say best buy, okay? As a matter of fact, I don't think she even likes the word cheap, okay? All right, so let's do a couple of GED examples. She don't like the word cheap at all. She said if it's cheap, it's not the best buy. Here's an example that is a GED formatted one. Carol mixes 6 cups of lettuce and 2 cups of tomatoes in her salad. What is the ratio in cups of tomatoes to lettuce in her salad? So these are the choices. You guys tell me, what's the right answer? Number 4, which says 1 to 3. Is that right? Okay, somebody said number 2, which was 3 to 1. Is that right? How many said 4? Raise your hands. Only one person says 4? How many say number 2? Okay, what did the rest of you guys say? Because you didn't raise your hands. Okay, how many say 2? Raise your hands. 1 over 2. There's no 1 over 2. What does the question say? Tomatoes to lettuce. How many tomatoes do I have? And how many cups of lettuce? You got to read carefully. Come on, y'all. The answer is not number 2. You got to put those tomatoes first. So your ratio is 2 to 6. So what does that reduce to? No, it does not reduce 3 to 1. 1 to 3. Okay? You must read your questions carefully, or you'll be picking the wrong ratio. So number 4 is absolutely correct. And we only had a lone wolf, and she was right. Okay? I should call her a lone wolfette. Okay? And she was the only one that was right. Okay? You guys have got to read the questions carefully and put it in the order of the question. Let's try another one. Larry has 5 $1 bills, 4 $10 bills, and 2 $5 bills. In what ratio does Larry have $10 bills to total bills? Okay, tell me what the right answer is. Okay, I have one person that said number 2. Okay, I have 2 people that said number 2. What is the question here? What ratio for $10 bills to total? Well, I guess I need to total it to figure out what the total is. What's the total? 11 bills. No, it says $10 bills. How many $10 bills do I have? 4. So 4 to 11 would be correct, right? You have got to read the question. You have to focus on the question. Find what your total is and then write the ratio of $10 bills to total. And that would be 4 to 11. Question 2 is correct. Or option 2 was right. I'm sorry. Okay, Mike bought salmon on sale. He paid $27.60 for 3 pounds. Find the rate. What was the price per pound? What was the price per pound? You should be able to do this one in your head. $9.20 per pound, right? This one you could just divide. Divide 3 into 27.60, and you're going to get 9.20. Wouldn't it be nice if the GED questions really were that easy? Because they're not. They be having 3, 4, 5 steps in there, and if you guys do not learn how to read carefully to answer the questions, you will not be passing that test. Okay? Sometimes it's 3 steps, sometimes it's 4 steps. Huh? Okay. All right, I want you and your table mates to tell me the right answer to this one. Read carefully.
What is the ratio of the smaller gears?
Okay, what's the right answer? A small gear in a machine makes 80 revolutions per minute, and a larger gear in the machine makes 25 revolutions per minute. What is the ratio of the smaller gear to the larger gear? And I've been told 3. Is that right? 5. How many say 5?
Oh, wait. No.
How many say 3?
I said 3. The smaller gear.
Sweetie, the smaller gear goes around faster, doesn't it? It's smaller. It's going to go around faster. 5? I got 2 5s. It'll be 5. Okay. So we needed to put 80 first and then the 25. And then once you reduce it by 5, you get 16 to 5, right? Do you guys understand how you have to read this carefully? Do not create your own question. It's so easy to do. I do it too. I'm guilty too, okay? Slow your roll. Focus on the question that's right there. Answer the question before you. Do not create your own question. It's easy to do. Okay, here's another one. Okay, tell me what this is going to be, because this is something like your math class, okay? On a math test, there are 20 fraction problems, 15 decimal problems, and 15 rate problems. What is the ratio of rate problems to the total number of questions? Rate problems to the total number of questions. Okay, somebody told me number 3. Ren, you said number 3 as well? Okay. How many people say number 3? Raise your hand. Okay. How many? Anybody else? A different problem, different question, I mean? Okay, number 3. So what did you guys start with on number for this one? So how many rate problems were there? 15, and how many total problems? So 15 to 50 reduces down to 3 to 10, right? No, but you can reduce the original, which was 15 to 50. 3 to 10, 3 is prime, so once you get a prime number, you know you're done. Yeah. Did you have a question, Alex? When you add them all together, you're going to get 50 questions. But only 15 of those 50 questions are rate problems. So your ratio is 15 to 50. Right. Okay? So the correct answer is number 3. All right. I love these types of questions all the time with ratios and rates. There are 30 people in a meeting. 18 of them are women. What is the ratio of men to women? What is the ratio of men to women? Are women. what is the ratio of men to women? And I have somebody that said number 4. Actually, I have 2 people who said number 4. What else? Any other ones? How many men are there? 12. How many women? And if I have 12 to 18 and reduce it, what would I get? 2 to 3. Okay? You must read carefully. Sometimes you have to subtract. You understand that? Okay. And then once you get the 12 to 18, you got to reduce by 6. And that'll give you answer number 4. So do you guys kind of get the hang of it, how you have to read carefully to answer the questions? And don't create your own question. Come on now. So remember that a rate is a ratio of different units. Ratio and rates, well, rates can be written with a per unit, but ratios you don't. You have 3 other forms. You can use fractional form, the colon form, which is standard, and the 2 form. You can also solve rates by setting up, set it up, cross multiply, divide, especially if you're dealing with fractions or decimals and you don't know how to actually solve it. And then sometimes you can do rate comparisons by just dividing to do those divisions and compare them. And then you want to use these rates when you're doing real life problems, okay? All right, let's go to you guys' packet.